Excuse me.
Good Thursday morning is the pilot episode of our fitness and fashion podcast. Welcome to another F-series of It's Just Another Ordinary Joe Show Thursday podcast. Looking forward to a bunch of exciting and stimulating conversation with you, our fellow Ordinary Joes and Ordinary Janes. Thursday, we talk about health, fitness, and what is this? Fashion? Fashion? Well, you know, I'm not so fashionable. What? Now let's talk back a little bit. How did fashion get into the mix? I'm nowhere near any sense of fashion in me. Well, however, let us remind our viewers and our listeners and everybody in our community what is the core principle of the Ordinary Joe Show podcast. And that is, we don't offer expert advice except for when we have a guest that come on who is an expert on a topic. But here in our community, we are fellow learners. We are fellow explorers. So we go together with our viewers and our listeners, and we go along on an adventure together to explore and learn more about the subject matter.
Now, if you feel good too, I want you to put your hands together and repeat after me. Y'all ready? 1, 2, 3, 4.
And true to our core principles here at the Ordinary Joe Show podcasting station, we are a local, serving local community podcast here in Toronto, Ontario. Although we acknowledge that we also have an international impact and we also serve our international audience. Primarily, we are going to talk about local events and activities, but we make sure that those things that we cover also are beneficial to our international audience. I'm your Ordinary Joe host, Primero Ordinario Joe Salvador, and we start this podcast in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to our community of brothers and sisters, Ordinary Janes and Ordinary Joes, coming together and sharing with each other here. And Thursdays, now, this is a little bit challenging for me because maybe some of you have seen me already on video, and you can see that I'm not a big fashion buff. Not at all. I like to wear the same type of outfit over and over, something safe, something not non-daring, but you know, we are a local podcast here in Toronto, Ontario, and we are listener and viewer centric. So it's not about me. I am not an expert who tells you what to do, and we've seen that over and over again in many podcasts, many vlogs, many blogs, and many, guru type shows out there who says, hey, I'm this expert and I have this much experience and look what I've done for myself. And here, listen, you do what I say. No, this is not the kind of podcast that we want to develop here on the Ordinary Joe Show, because we are all Ordinary Joes and Ordinary Janes who just want to not chug along, but who wants to thrive and to learn and to develop. But we are not there yet. Most of us listeners here, and including me, are not there yet. We are striving and we are working hard to get there, to learn more, to strive to be the best that we can be. We just had a great guest back on Monday on our finance and business episode, which is F2 for finance, business, and entrepreneurship. And he shared an equation to greatness. The equation is like this. The greatness equation, the best possible you multiplied by the biggest positive impact. Again, the greatness equation is equal to the best possible you multiplied by the biggest positive impact. Now, it was Mr. Alexander Michael Gittins, our guest back on Finance and Business Mondays, who shared this equation, this nugget of truth to us. And I'd like you to think about that for a second. Now, why is fashion so important? Feeling good, looking good is all part of the package of becoming good or doing great. I am no educated philosopher, but I'm telling you, you can take that to the bank. That's a quote straight from Mr. Ordinary Joe of the Ordinary Joe Show. Now, let me quote someone who's more credible than I am. And he said something like this: "It is better to be beautiful than to be good. But it is always better to be good than to be ugly." Well, that's my amplified version from Oscar Wilde. Well, he's saying here, you can see that goodness is always better than to be ugly. So he is anti-ugly. But as like in one of my vlogs, I said, if beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, so is ugliness then is also in the eyes of the beholder. Well, let's step back a little and just kind of re-emphasize what the Thursday podcast is all about. Thursday is not only about fashion, it actually starts with health and fitness. Health and fitness, I felt like it's probably the right blend, the right mix to be covered if we want to cover fashion. And just with that, I can hear now the intro to our break. Please don't go away. We will be right back in about 60 seconds from now.
And repeat after me. Y'all ready?
A friendly reminder to all our fellow Ordinary Janes and Ordinary Joes following us on Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud. Tomorrow we shift gears and we will cover the topic of films, music, books, and art. And then on Saturday we wind down and cover the topic of faith and family for our Saturday podcast. Then we go full circle and return to our F1 series, which is about flights and destination. Finance and Entrepreneur, Finance and Business podcast again on Monday. And on Tuesday, we continue on with Future of Technology and Social Progress. By Wednesday, we return to our Food Festivals and Fine Wines podcast. And we will be back here next Thursday for another episode of Health, Fitness, and Fashion. Thank you for sticking around. Now, let's go back to our regular programming. Welcome back. Thank you for sticking around. Let me ask you, what do you think? Is that quote from Oscar Wilde pretty wild? Let's say that again. It's better to be beautiful than to be good, but it's better to be good than to be ugly. But the Ordinary Joe amplified version goes like this. Oscar Wilde, it's better to be beautiful than to be good, but it's always better to be good and never ever allow yourself to be ugly. So that's my amplified version. But as you know, there's beauty and ugly is both subjective. Having said that, there's a beauty equation. There's what you call in nature the golden ratio, which we'll not talk about that here right now, or maybe a little later in the next segments, because that is actually a very important point and one of the topic of debate that I had with one of the college classes I attended recently for marketing. Fitness, health, fitness, and fashion. Hopefully that's a good mix. And I have so many things that are in line, exciting things that we are going to cover, people that we are going to talk to, guests that are going to come over and speak to our viewers online and listeners online. And it's going to be an exciting podcast. Today's pilot episode, I can already feel, I am the primary student, especially when it comes to fashion, and also I am the primary student when it comes to health and fitness, because this is what Torontonians care about. And so even though we serve our Torontonian local community, everybody who's listening to us from all over the world will actually benefit from all these things that we will be discussing throughout the course of these episodes. And we pray for, by the end of the 100 episodes of Health and Fitness podcast and fashion podcast, I'm hoping that yours truly would actually be able to achieve my health and fitness goals. And hopefully will look a little bit more fashionable by the end of our 100 episodes or less. 100 episodes, that's 100 weeks, right? So that's close to about 2 years because we have 52 weeks a year. So just a little less than 2 years. Hopefully I'll be more like a fitness buff. Maybe I'll be a bodybuilder by then. Who knows what's going to happen? But again, I'm just trying to entertain you. Let's step back and go back to the roots of the mandate of this podcast. And that is not about me. None of this is about me. Although I'll be a fellow student and I want to learn together with you, I'm also learning this for myself. But the primary purpose of this podcast is my labor of love. My labor of love, my giving back to society, my service to all my listeners, my followers, and my viewers on all social media platforms. As the saying, as the scripture says about serving other, that if you want to be great in God's kingdom, learn to be the servant of all. And that is my greatness equation. So as I totally agree with my friend Mr. Michael Gittins about being great is pretty great, I also don't want to be alone up there in greatness. I don't want it to be a lonely place. So being great is pretty great. Also, if we can get everybody else, our ordinary fellows, pursue greatness with us, and then now it's not a lonely place of greatness anymore. I totally believe that human was designed for greatness because humans are the only creation, according to the scripture, that were created in the image and likeness of the Creator Himself. Last night, I was listening to a motivational speaker and an author online. Her name is Mel Brooks from San Francisco. And she said that being born is like an odds of 1 in 400 trillion. So if you're a human being and you were born and you're alive, you are created for a purpose, because the odds of being born, the odds of being alive and to be human is pretty slim. 1 in every 400 trillion. That's why I know the Ordinary Joe Show is a pretty great platform, pretty great show, because if there's only one other human out there listening to this show other than me, if you're human, I'm pretty sure only humans listen to this show. And you're listening to this show, you're creating this show to be one of the greatest show on earth. Thank you, humans. Humans are always welcome to this show. Reptilians, I don't think you'll understand any of our language. It's not because you don't understand human, it's just because we are speaking in a higher level of insight here on the Ordinary Joe Show. Okay, let's be serious a little bit. I can see that the break time cue is just around the corner, creeping up to our timeline here again. But what else can I squeeze in before the break time starts? Well, just stick around. When we come back, we are going to talk about a little on the subject of formatting and what to expect in the upcoming episodes of Health, Fitness, and Fashion podcast here on the Ordinary Joe Show. And oh, yeah, remind me when we come back, I'd like to talk about opening for a co-host. Don't go away, we'll be back in about 60 seconds from this point. Thank you very much for sticking with us. A friendly reminder to all our followers on audio podcasts on iTunes, Spreaker, and SoundCloud. It'll be a really big help for the furthering of our show and to sustain our show. If you can come yourself and invite friends to come and visit our Facebook page, Ordinary Joe Show on Facebook, and on our YouTube channel, Ordinary Joe Show on YouTube and Vimeo as well. And come and subscribe and share a video version of this podcast to your timeline. Therefore, helping us to get more exposure and increase our community together. We will greatly appreciate that, and our other community fellow members here will appreciate that as well. And now, let's go back to our regular program. Welcome back to the Ordinary Joe Show, Health and Fitness and Fashion Thursdays podcast. Thank you for sticking around. And just before we went on break, I'll mention something about co-hosting. So, the Ordinary Joe Show Thursday Health and Fitness and Fashion podcast is open for guest co-host on a rotation. Somebody who lives in Toronto, male or female, Toronto, I mean, when I say Toronto, I'm talking about Greater Toronto area. So that includes the boroughs just off the downtown core. And if you live in the GTA area and you're passionate about fashion, about fitness, about health, and you would like to guest co-host with me for a number of episodes that we can talk about as we move forward, it could also lead to becoming a permanent co-host if this particular segment of the Ordinary Joe Show becomes a staple podcast for the entirety of the show. And, you know, I'd like to sit with someone who can disagree with me, agree with me, bring your take on the subject matter. But let me, full disclosure, before we continue on, let me just describe to you my vision on this particular podcast, on this particular Thursday podcast about fitness and fashion. When it comes to fashion, you can expect nothing of the gory sort. And if you watch some of these runways on fashion weeks in New York or in Toronto, and some of the eccentric type of fashion artistry that I do not understand, or most people don't understand, most common Ordinary Joes and Ordinary Janes don't appreciate or understand, because they're too eccentric, too we kind of want to stick to pop culture, the basics in fashion, especially if I'm the one who's bringing in the material, and the co-host is free to bring in his or her own material to blend into the mix. But with the material that I'll be bringing, what you can expect from me are the usual. For men fashion, it'll be the usual discussion about choices of ties and suits and sports jacket. What's appropriate color combination? What's appropriate shoes for what kind of outfit, for what kind of occasion that you are dressing up for the season, appropriate for the season and stuff. And again, I'm not a connoisseur of the subject. I am a student, and I will learn what I've been learning for myself, and I will share it with you. And for the guest co-host that I want to invite, okay, full disclosure again, this is a voluntary guest co-hosting position. It's not paid. I also am not getting paid. This is a service that I do for humanity, for our listeners and followers out there. At some point, we need to generate some income so I can continue doing this and not have to divide my time and energy and attention between part-time jobs and the important task that we do here for the Ordinary Joe Show. So if you are a young person in Toronto, doesn't have to be young, you could be also of a seniority, as long as you're able to relate or offer relevant information as well for our younger listeners as well. So that's the category, that's the requirements. You live in Toronto, you're able to schedule at least a couple of episodes per month in regards to you can choose either fashion or fitness. It doesn't have to be the same person, the same co-host for both topics. I know that you probably not necessarily be inclined to talk about the other if you are passionate about one of them. So I'm thinking about maybe fashion bloggers, fashion vloggers, fitness vloggers, fitness bloggers, gym instructors. If you work in a shop that sells designer fashion and all that, or you just love to talk about this. You don't have to be an expert, like I said. You could be an ordinary Jane, an ordinary Joe who wants to be a co-learner and who want to be a co-host with me so that we can have an exchange and we can collaborate on researching, collaborate on finding out things. And I can see the cue towards our next break coming up soon again. And what can I squeeze here? When we come back, I'd like to talk about how the format will start with fashion news, fitness news, events, and special, maybe sales, bargain sales from stores. When we come back, we'll talk about that. We'll return in about 60 seconds from now. A friendly reminder to all our fellow ordinary Janes and ordinary Joes following us on Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud. Tomorrow we shift gears and we will cover the topic of films, music, books, and art. And then on Saturday we wind down and cover the topic of faith and family for our Saturday podcast. Then we go full circle and return to our F1 series, which is about flights and destination. Finance and Entrepreneur, Finance and Business podcast again on Monday, and on Tuesday we continue on with Future of Technology and Social Progress. By Wednesday we return to our Food Festivals and Fine Wines podcast, and we will be back here next Thursday for another episode of Health, Fitness, and Fashion. Thank you for sticking around. Now let's go back to our regular programming. Hello, welcome back. Thank you for sticking with us. This is Health and Fitness podcast and Fashion Podcast Thursdays. And thank you for bearing with us. Today's a pilot episode, and as you can see already, we started with the descriptions and the conversations and the dialogues at the very beginning of this episode. However, moving forward from episode 2 onwards, we will always start with fashion news, fitness news, events, and things that are relevant for all our fitness and fashion enthusiasts here, the followers of this particular podcast. So I'm looking at things like hard to find bargain events. For example, if you are in fitness and you would like to invest on fitness outfits, shoes, some of those can be very expensive, and it depends also on what kind of fitness activity you're involved in. So I know a lot of people in the circle of rock climbing community, and some of them ropes and shoes you can rent at the climbing gym, but many of them, of course, you would probably be, if you're part of that circle, you would probably want to invest on your own stuff, especially shoes and things that are attached to your skin. So having said that, that's another service that we want to render to our viewers and listeners on the podcast. We will gather information when we find out places who does special bargain events or discount events on their stores of athletic wear and whatnot. And also for fashion. So as we move along, we will find out what type of fashion does our listener want to focus on. But I can tell you already, like I said in the segment prior, that for me personally, the material that I'll be bringing to this show will be focused on more conventional fashion. So those are the kind of news I'm hoping that you will be able to expect from us moving forward. That every Thursday before we begin our episode, we start with fashion news and fitness news. So some of the components that you can expect will be, like I said, events and bargain discount events. Any news in the Twitter world that we hear, or in the blogosphere world that we hear about discounts and events that help build community, like marathons and stuff like that, so that we can come together and create a community of fashion and fitness followers. So when we hear about liquidations as well, or bargain events, big stores such as Sporting Life or National Sports and those kind of nature of establishments, if they're having a day for special discount on certain products, certain equipment. And I'm going to tell you right up front right now, we don't need them to be sponsors or paying sponsors before we deliver you this kind of information. So for most, in the real world, and we live in the real world, but most people think, well, why are we doing this? What profit do we get from it? First of all, we want to serve you, our listeners, our viewers. You are our number one priority. So if National Sports, for example, or Sports Check is having a sale on a certain type of shoe that we know that a lot of our followers care about, it's relevant for them, like rock climbing shoes, for example, and we hear about a great discount. Doesn't matter if Sport Check or Sporting Life or National Sports pay us as a sponsor. If we know about that information, we will not withhold it from our listeners and our viewers. Because you are our number one priority, our listeners and our viewers. We are viewer-centric podcasts. So I want to put that out there and make it clear to all our viewers that you are our priority, and we will bring you information that we see relevant for you, not relevant for the sponsors or the advertisers on the show. In the future, if they would like to eventually realize that we're actually bringing them value as well by giving their brands exposure on our show, and they would like to sponsor and advertise on us, we will not turn down the offer unless they want us to change the narrative and the content of our show to fit their products or their marketing. No, we won't do that. We will stick to our guns. We will stick to our principles. So whether companies or stores or product providers that are going on sale, they have a special sale, special discount day, whether they are our sponsor or not, if we know it will benefit our listeners, we will bring you that information. So in the marketing world, it's usually one thing or the other. Don't go away. We will continue this topic on the other side of this break in about 60 seconds from now.
I want you to put your hands together and repeat after me.
Thank you very much for sticking with us. A friendly reminder to all our followers on audio podcasts on iTunes, Spreaker, and SoundCloud. It'll be a really big help for the furthering of our show and to sustain our show. If you can come yourself and invite friends to come and visit our Facebook page, Ordinary Joe Show on Facebook, and on our YouTube channel, Ordinary Joe Show on YouTube and Vimeo as well. And come and subscribe and share a video version of this podcast to your timeline, therefore helping us to get more exposure and increase our community together. We will greatly appreciate that, and our other community fellow members here will appreciate that as well. And now let's return to our regular Thursday podcast programming. Welcome back to our show, ladies and gentlemen, fellow brothers and sisters, Ordinary Janes and Ordinary Joes. So this is the last segment for our pilot episode, and we are doing this in reverse. We are going to do the fashion news and the fitness news in the beginning of our episodes, moving forward, starting episode 2. But for today, we did it backwards because we want to kind of welcome you to the show. So now, to end this episode with our last segment, we are going to deliver some relevant information and events and news, fitness and fashion news here at the end. And At the end of this segment, we will say goodbye to you and we'll see you again next week on Thursday. So first item in our list, this particular event and organization, if you can call it that, is actually partner with the Ordinary Joe Show as a media partner for their event. And you can see our logo on their advertising as well. First item on the list is the Z-Dance Marathon that's happening on the 26th of May, 2018. I believe this is on a Saturday. And this is happening in Centennial College Gymnasium, Progress Avenue in Scarborough, 941 Progress Avenue, Toronto, Ontario. It starts at 9 a.m. until 3 p.m. It's the longest marathon ever held in Ontario, involving 25 different Zumba instructor, or what they call ZIN, Zumba Instructor Network. So the biggest marathon that happened in the past would be maybe 200, 300, 400 people doing a Zumba marathon under one roof in one day, as organized by 2 or 3 ZINs. Now, this is the biggest ever because there's 25 ZINs coming together to organize this event, and they are actually expecting about 1,200 or more Zumba participants to come and enjoy a 6-hour Zumba marathon under one roof in Centennial College Progress Avenue in Scarborough. So the tickets are $25, $40 with loot bag included, and VIP pass for $50 loot bag included, which I think in the loot bag you'll get a shirt for the event. So this is happening May 26th, and to get your tickets, you go to www.zdancemarathon.com, or you can also visit the Philippine Chamber of Commerce Toronto website at pccttoronto.com to get your tickets there for the 6-hour Zumba Marathon, first ever and biggest ever in Ontario. Next item on the list, April 15, 2018, Sunday, starting at 9 a.m. This is actually an every Sunday event, but the next one will be happening April 15. They start a run from 210 Laird Drive, Toronto, Ontario, on East York. Begin to Run community group. Come join our Begin to Run group Sundays, 9 a.m. Welcome to Spring, beginning March 18 up to May 20th. And the next one is April 15th, this Sunday. Think Nature Trails, Trees, and Fresh Air. Begin to Run is a group of us that meets at Inside Out Studio Sundays, 9 a.m. Grab a friend and come on over and join us in the fun. This running group is geared to beginners and runs about 5 kilometers, all levels. Everyone is welcome. No one is left behind. Run or walk and run. If you would like to join us, simply shoot us an email at info@insideoutstudios.ca, free with RSVP. So that's happening on the 15th of April, Sunday, if you'd like to run with a group of people who's enthusiastic about nature. Next item on our news list is the 11th Inc. 3rd Anniversary Party. The 11th Inc. 3rd Anniversary Party happening Saturday, 21st of April, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., 26 Carl Fraser Road, Toronto, Ontario. And it says here on their description, join us on Saturday, April 21st, 2018 as we celebrate our 3-year anniversary. Over the past 3 years, we have been providing Toronto with the cycling industry's most current bikes, cycling gear, and service. In those short 3 years, we have interacted and served some of the greatest customer imaginable, and we wanted to extend our gratitude with this event. From 7 to 9, the team at the 11th Inc. will be serving up drinks, food, music, and great party. And you know what? This event is for free. So I might be going to that last item, so I might see you there. Next item on the list is Spring Free Trampoline and Earth Day Canada's pop-up adventure playground in Toronto. This is happening on Sunday, 22nd of April, starting from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. In celebration of Earth Day 2018, Spring Free Trampoline and Earth Day Canada have come together to host a pop-up adventure playground in the heart of Toronto. Spring Free and Earth Day understands the importance of outdoor play in kids' mental, physical, emotional well-being, and believe that our outdoor play is the foundation for environmental education and stewardship. So guys, if you have kids, this is a great event to be fit, to be physical, to just sweat it out and have fun with your kids as well. On Canada Day, July 1st, Sunday, from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., Canada Day ride happening from the Golden Horseshoe Biking. The annual Canada Day ride has been a tradition over the years of road cyclists looking to celebrate Canada Day in Toronto. It starts at the foot of Yonge Street in Toronto at 8 a.m. and cruises west down Lakeshore Boulevard, picking up riders along the way and expanding into a colorful pack. The ride starts off slow and friendly and increased speed near Port Credit, Mississauga. The ride continues through the suburbs of Mississauga, Brampton, Vaughan, Richmond Hill, Markham, and Scarborough, circling all of Toronto. Go to this free event. Register on eventbrite.com. This and 10 other events will be posted on the ordinaryjoeshow.ca website. Sorry, we ran out of time, but if you just go to eventbrite.com, springfree.com, events in Toronto by BlogTO, and Z-Dance Marathon, also the Rec Room and the fitness events BlogTO, you will see a lot of fitness events. And sorry, we ran out of time for fashion events, but everything will be posted on ordinaryjoeshow.ca. Thank you again for sticking with us today. Thank you for joining us for our pilot episode. We'll see you again next week on Thursday for another episode of Health, Fitness, and Fashion Podcast. It's just another Ordinary Joe Show. We'll see you again next week. God bless you all.
Feel good too. I want you to put your hands together and repeat after me. Y'all ready?